Well, it's been a while since we've actually seen your face because you've been on Zoom. We haven't been together face to face in all the meetings that you attend. We really deeply appreciate it, and it was great to see you apply. You obviously have great command of the school board, the functions, the issues, and you've been an advocate out there in the public. And I think you made the candidate pool better by applying, and we appreciate that. And so, on behalf of the board and cabinet, again, thanks for applying. We look forward to spending some time with you on this. I think you know the rules by now that 30 minutes is the overall cap. So manage your time by question as you see fit. You can go to more detail on one or less on the other, but it's really your time, and we're happy to have you. Anybody else? Wendy, any comments?
Yeah, I just would like to say thank you, Belinda. You are so diligent and so committed to serving the community by, attending and being involved so deeply with board issues and attending the board meetings. And so I just felt again that it was a testament to your service and your capacity for leadership and your genuine, heartfelt commitment to our kids. And so thank you for throwing your hat in the ring, and we look forward to talking with you over the next half hour.
Okay, well, let's get at it. So we have the 8 questions that I think that you were provided ahead of time, and board members will rotate asking those questions. And again, take whatever time you think you want, question by question, and I'll kick it off. So Belinda, tell us a little bit about yourself and your motivation to pursue this opportunity.
Okay, well, before I get started on myself, I just want to thank the previous board members and the cabinet for serving all these years. I met Jamie back, I think, in 2004. Wendy came next in 2006, Anna East in junior high. And I know Andrew and Ellen are out there. So hi, Andrew, hi, Ellen. I met them in 2011. And I met each of you, the remaining board members, Dan and Brent and Joe and Keitzer, when you guys were running for election. So I just appreciate the years of service that everybody's put in. And I know how much work that is. So I just want to reiterate how much I love this district, and I love the people that are trying, devoting their lives to educating our kids. I believe in that so much, so I appreciate that. When I joined, back when my kids were in kindergarten, I was still trying to test the waters and figure out what volunteering opportunity would work for me. So I tried some traditional things like, classroom volunteering, the library, room parent. I even tried school site council. And eventually I figured out that I should be a school board groupie. So that is what I stuck with to keep me going. And part of the reason that I did that is that I love analyzing documents. And I love analyzing them as a tool to help improve instructional access for education for our kids. So that's kind of why I like doing it so much, is because I believe in the education. And I don't know how many of you know what I do that I don't usually talk about, but I do talk to a lot of parents and help them through different processes. And so that's how I've stayed in touch with the community even after I've left, even after my children have graduated. And that's it. That's about me.
Great, thank you, Ms. Randolph. This is Keitzer. I have the second question. And the second question asks, please summarize the strengths you would bring as a member of the governing board.
Okay, great. So based on my 10 past years of coming to board meetings, I kind of know what goes on in open session or the public portion of the meetings. I have some inkling of what goes on in the closed sessions. So I understand that process. My work experience as an engineer and doing mission operations is really good. It lends itself for this type of work, like planning for contingencies. And that's exactly what we need to do over the next year. And I already touched upon the fact that I enjoy documents. I uniquely have favorite board policies, in case anybody's forgotten. My favorite board policy is 6162.5, which is the homework policy, which has to do with, did the teachers return the homework in a timely fashion? And also, are the students allowed to keep the tests? Because I fundamentally believe that being able to take home a test allows a student to really learn the material. And I think that that is so important in terms of the educational benefits. My favorite AR is 1312.1, which has to do with the complaint process. And I have talked to many parents about their issues, and I usually pulled up that AR and share it with the parents. There's the teacher contract, which I've spent time with. There's things like extra duty, extra pay reports, and the corresponding job descriptions. And with all of these, I've read these things. I know how to find them. I've contributed to them, and I've helped to review them. And this stuff, while maybe other people might find boring, this energizes me. So that is one of the things I bring to the table. And then the connection to a diverse group of people. You know, I have private conversations with both parents and teachers all the time. You know, I remember back to one of my conversations with a math teacher, and we ended up meeting at a pizza place in Altadena so we could have a private conversation without anybody knowing. And we talked about policy, we talked about instructional methods, we talked about what it means to be a teacher. And so that's one example of the types of conversations I have. And I have similar conversations, private ones with parents, and that just covers everything from racism to math to IEPs, counseling, summer school, college admissions. And I do that a lot, you know, in my free time. And then sometimes I do public things, like I go to back to school night, even when my kids graduate. And I've hosted a meeting in my home to work on keeping Mandarin in the school district for the kids that had already started, you know, so they wouldn't have to restart with a new language. I co-hosted a meeting with parents in a different home about the PE, the elite PE. That's something that Andrew Blumenfeld started, but I gathered up parents and had a meeting so that we could all get together and discuss it and support it, because it was something that we as a group, and I think there was at least 20 people in the room, thought was useful. So those are just a few of the things I've done to get to know the community. And I think that's a strength that I have done those things.
Thank you.
Hi, Belinda, it's Dan. I have the third question. And the third question was going to be, what is your favorite BP and what is your favorite AR? That's a good question for everyone to answer, but instead I'll ask it a little differently. Instead, I'll ask, as a board member, what do you see as your primary purpose or primary role?
I almost thought I missed that question, and that was a joke. Boy, I don't have a good sense of humor. Okay, so the board sets our district goals. That's pretty much the primary purpose of the board. And then let me just show what that means. So what that means is that the district goals drive board policy. They drive contract negotiations with our teachers union or classified union and our professional staff. The district goals drive our superintendent's goals. And the board delegates the administration of the district to our superintendent. And so I'm going to sidetrack here. And this is the difference between an administrative regulation and a board policy. The board sets the board policy, and the administrators, meaning site or district, write the administrative regulations to bring forth and actually make the board policy a reality. And then, so what does the board, so the board doesn't do a lot of the things, that's more the superintendent's responsibility. But now the board does evaluate the superintendent's progress towards her goals, and it evaluates financial audits and approves interim budgets. And those are the things that the board does, and in order to, yeah, that's what they do. They don't get down and decide exactly how a certain board policy will be implemented in the school. They can discuss it, but they don't actually get to make that decision. That goes to the administrative staff. And that's my answer of the board role.
Thank you, Belinda.
Hi, Belinda. Brent Kuzik here. Question 4, how would you fulfill the role both as an individual and as a member of the governing board?
Okay, so as an individual, I would continue to read all of the agenda items and documentation, prior to the board meetings. I think it's really important to be prepared when you show up at a board meeting and to know the details and to maybe have even asked those questions prior to the meeting, if possible. The questions that would arise prior to the meeting. I think it's also very important as an individual that I would communicate with the people I represent, which would be the taxpayers, it would be teachers, parents, students, and I believe in proactively communicating early in the process or continuously, and not reactive to public outcry. I think one thing I might do individually would be suggest that we start creating lessons learned training so that mistakes that we make in the past, we can learn from and not repeat. And I think that, you know, each institution benefits from that exercise, and I certainly benefit from that when we do that at my job. So lessons learned is a great thing that I would try and introduce. And then I would recommend more transparency and more clear documentation. And for example, one really minor thing I would recommend is something like PDFs. The district, like if you were to look at the email that I got, which was a document explaining the process of this interview schedule and the details of how it would be run, it was all typed on a computer. And then I believe it was printed, scanned by a printer into a PDF and sent to me, instead of just letting me search a PDF that was electronically created by a computer. And searchable PDFs allow users, meaning the community, to have better access to the material. And I think that that is something that we should strive for. So as an individual, I would think of ideas like that to suggest. And then, but the thing is, the board isn't an individual activity. The board is a team. And so as a board, I would, you know, be part of the team and, you know, do everything that every team member does and vote and listen respectfully and participate in more as a team player than as an individual. And my individual goals kind of go very much secondary because that's not the purpose of a board member. And that's it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Belinda. Okay, my turn again, lapping the board members. Question 5. How does an effective school board ensure opportunities for parents, staff, and community members to express their diverse range of views to inform board deliberations on important policy issues?
Excellent. Okay, so I'd like to bring up the yearly surveys that we have that most of the audience is familiar with. When I started, or when my children started at school, those didn't exist. I think I might have been the first to volunteer to be a member of that committee when it was formed. And I greatly appreciated that I had the opportunity to be on that committee. After the results came out, I actually took the results of one of the questions, which was how much time does your child spend on homework? And I framed it with a letter that my son had written to his teacher the academic year prior. And the whole frame is, it says my motivation. That's what it was titled. And it sits in my office at work. That survey was very powerful, and it led to very fundamental changes that benefited the students. So I really appreciate that opportunity. So that's one way we can communicate and represent our community. Another way is to utilize technology even more so than we already do. Thank you, Jamie, for everything you've done for our district. So one of the things that I've noticed in committees that I've served on and that other people have told me about when they serve is that the boss kind of already has a direction and an outcome in mind, and it's hard for the committee members, especially the teachers, to influence things. And so at work, we use a tool called Mentimeter, and it's an electronic tool with anonymous inputs. And what it is so any member of the meeting public can type in a topic, and then they can see all the topics that have been introduced by anyone in this meeting. and then they can upvote the ones they like. And so what you get to see is one, your topic gets printed, but you also get to see what other people think. And it's the top topics that drive the discussion. And what this does is it fosters an open communication system where nobody's afraid of what their boss might think or afraid they might be the only one with this controversial idea. And I think using technology in this way to allow for open communication is incredibly important, because we shouldn't have people be afraid of disagreeing with their boss for some things that are as important as the education of our kids, which is what we care about. So those are like two ideas of how one could represent the community. And of course, the other idea is, talk to the community, which I've always been doing. So I would certainly be able to continue doing that in the future. And I think the next question might address that point. So I'll end this one.
You're right, Ms. Randolph, it does. So thank you. This is Heitzer again, and I have question number 6. And it asks, describe your response if a parent cornered you in the grocery store and asked you to personally step in to solve their issue.
Okay, excellent. So first off, I want to point out that is a pre-pandemic question. And but given that we live in pandemic times, the first thing I would do is say, I care, let's talk outside, because I really don't like grocery stores anymore. And second, I've been stopped a zillion times in the grocery store, so I'll just tell you how it goes. The first thing I do is I try and listen to what I'm hearing, and I try both to hear the person who's talking to me about their issue and their role and their perspective, but alternatively, I also try to imagine and understand the other person's role, because sometimes this involves two people. It's just I'm only hearing it from one. And sometimes the issue is really simple. And all it is, oh, you need to go look at this document. Let me email it to you. Or, oh, you need to talk to this person. Let me give you the name of the person. And those are great. And quite honestly, most of my communications fit into that level. So sometimes it's a little different. And so then I say, let's assume it was a teacher, for example. I would say, well, have you or your student spoken to the teacher? And so sometimes the answer is no. And so what I would do, and I actually got this advice from Jim Stratton, if you can believe it, is I would suggest phrases that this person could use to put the teacher at ease during the conversation, to make the conversation more productive. And I always tell parents, go meet your teachers on the first week of school. So if anything goes wrong, they already know you and aren't afraid of you. And of course, that's what I've done. But and then if they and then I'll also say, if you have, go ahead and talk to them, but also get back to me. Tell me how it went. And I think that just makes them feel more like I care. And if it goes really badly, there might be follow-up advice. And then there's the idea that they've already talked to the teacher and it didn't go so well. And so there's a couple things I would bring up with them. One is to try and discern whether or not this issue affects the entire class, if it can be independently verified, and if it's a violation of the board policy. Because if all of those things happen, the parent, for example, does not have to put their name to their concern. They can have the administrator of the site address their concern, and they get to stay anonymous. And that is something that our parents want very much so. And I know it in the ideal world, that wouldn't be something people would want, but I personally have experienced reasons why I would like to be anonymous more often than not. And I just reread one from 2006, if you can believe it. And it was kind of sad what happened back then. So I think anonymous communication is really important. And I think our parents need to know about that. I did work to get that exact phrasing included in that AR I told you about earlier, 1312.1. But the other thing I would do is I would explain to the parent the difference between a verbal discussion with the principal and the full complaint process, along with the written complaint steps and the corresponding meetings. Because many parents think that if they just go in and talk to the principal, it will be handled. And that is not really true. And that is not actually a complaint as far as the teacher's contract goes. So I would take the time to explain that to the person who cornered me in the grocery store. And there would be follow-up both ways. So that would be the answer to that question. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And the next question is, what do you see as the three most critical and challenging issues facing the LCUSD Governing Board for the 2021 school year?
Okay. Okay, so I'll just quickly give you the three so that you have a heads up of where I'm going. The first one is the budget. The second one is reopening, and the third one is equity. So the budget, you're all familiar with it. We have our income sources are unknown at the moment. We've got unknown with parcel tax, property tax, rental income, PTA donations, and La Cañada Flint Ridge Education Foundation donations. And I'm going to take a quick shout out to the Education Foundation and the PTA people for the work they do for fundraising for our district. We need it. And I just value the people that have the skill and the willingness to go out and do that every single year. And we need it a lot this year. So thank you so much for all of those people. And then the other thing that, is uncertain budget wise is we really don't know what we're going to get in terms of our budget this year. There was talk of a budget reduction of about 7%, but that's being revisited. And so it's just an unknown as to what our financial situation might be. But we do know that our expenditures are going to increase. Technology infrastructure is going to cost more, our PPEs, our safety equipment. We might have to reduce class teacher to student ratios. We might have to reduce class sizes, and we might have to increase our custodian hours. And that's just a few things that we might have to do. The lucky thing is we have Mark Evans, and Mark Evans will, that's his job, and we delegate. And our job as board members is to understand so that we can approve his budgets. So we still have to understand a lot, but we don't have to, dive into the weeds quite as much as he does. Okay, so the next one is reopening. We have to start dialoguing with the teachers union and the county health department early so that we have a chance of coming up with a solution that both people would accept. We need to listen to our stakeholders, and that's our reopening committee, which has already hopefully been selected. And that's open and transparent. And what the things I think I would like differently than maybe everyone else is thinking is open and transparent discussions during that committee. We care about this immensely. And so YouTube coverage of this committee would be an excellent idea. Our school board attendance has, more than tripled since we started putting it on YouTube. And I think the reopening committee is a perfect place to also do that technology. And the other thing is detailed written records, distributing them in real time to the public and without the needs of public records requests or waiting for them to maybe get attached to an agenda item. The public cares. We want to see these documents early and in a timely fashion so that we can make that decision of whether or not we want to read it. And then, of course, this whole reopening requires a changed approach to instructional delivery. Our math and science instruction right now relies heavily on in-class experiences, and that's hard to duplicate. And we're going to need remote experiences over the next academic year, at least in part. So we need to empower our teachers to explore these new approaches and give them the resources to implement them. And then finally, equity. We did the survey, and some of our parents, like 20%, want to go to school full time and have their kids there. The teachers, 22% of them have childcare issues, so full time's not really going to work. Remote learning isn't going to work. Only 13% of the teachers want that, mostly because I think they enjoy our kids and they enjoy the interactions that are so crucial to education. And then, of course, there's the hybrids. But part of the reason I bring this up is this is about equity. And, equity doesn't mean an equal instructional approach. And I think that our IEP students might need the physical access to their education more so than our regular students. They need to be with their teachers and their teacher aides, and more so than, somebody else's kids. And that is just so that they can, basically tread water, if that. This time has been really tough on that crowd of people. And, our district is great when we prioritize access to education equity. And that means that our IEP kids and our 504 kids and our minority students are not an afterthought. They are at the forefront of prioritizing and making our decisions. That's the end of my question number 7.
Thank you, Belinda.
Thank you.
Hi, Belinda. Brent Kuzik here. Last question. What questions do you have for the board to help you prepare to take on this commitment if chosen?
Thirsty, sorry about that. So I have 2, and they have to do with getting up to speed. So the first one is, I know that the CSBA has some webinars, and I want to know how quickly one can get signed up for those. The first one was open to the public, and I have already started that one. And then the second one is, let me get my notes on this. The CSBA offers a course called Masters in Governance. And I don't believe that one's online. And so I'm hoping that somebody has a hard copy of that instructional material so that that could be available sooner rather than later. And in particular, I'd be interested in the finance section if I was to pick one to start with. It's number 3, but I think maybe that would be the one I want to start with. So that's all I have. So hopefully you guys will be able to make a decision, and hopefully all the other candidates were fabulous in the next one too. I didn't listen to any of them. So I look forward to listening to them, maybe this weekend. All right, thank you.
Thanks, Belinda. Just to touch on your answer to your question. Yeah, the CSBA has a ton of resources, self-help. You can dive in, take webinars. And I know there's some actual great in-person coursework that can be done. They don't always schedule them. Sometimes it's just a couple times a year and you got to tie in. They actually give a credential step to like master of the governing board, all kinds of great assets out there if there's knowledge gaps. And then, so we would talk to you about that if you get appointed and how to go after some of that. And of course we do the annual, I'm not sure what's going to happen this fall, but we do the annual, participate in the actual conference, which is also has some great resources and insights. So we'll keep you all squared on that if you get the appointment for sure.
Okay, well, the reason I asked that is just because we have to be able to jump in and get started right away, whoever's selected. So, All right, well, hey, thank you very much, everybody. Thank you for your service. Hi, Andrew. Hi, Ellen. And hi, everybody else. I'll see you all later.
Thank you, Belinda. Great job.
Thank you, Belinda. We appreciate it. Great.